calls. I just want to say that I take none of this lightly. I know sometimes my persona in television has been to be somewhat of a cynical prick. I'm genuinely touched by what you've done for me. I won't forget it.
Thanks for staying up later. Dennis Miller is back. The last time he was here, he was still on Saturday Night Live. It was about 3 years ago. Who knew what the future held? And now you join an ever-dwindling minority of Americans, those who do not have talk shows.
Right. It's me and I think 2 people in Topeka, Kansas. There's 3 of us.
How does it feel? Before the camera started rolling, you looked to me about as relaxed as I've seen you. It doesn't look like you're overwrought about it.
Well, other than the fact you're blocking my key light with your big knee down.
Yeah, this is a big television thing. I'm trying to be comfortable, and then they're telling me that I'm in your shot.
I'm okay with it. It's, put it this way, I hate people who, there's so much deception that goes on in show business about how bad this hurts you or doesn't hurt you, failure in this business, not cancellation. I'm as hurt as anybody would be if they lose something that they enjoyed doing. At some point, though, the expectation that once you get on television, you will remain a television constant for the rest of your life is a pretty silly way to lead your life. You're talking about a very whimsical chemistry between you and an audience, and it's hard to get on and think, well, I'm like Carson, I'll be here 30 years. I never thought like that. I've watched baseball too much. You get hired, unless you're Walt Alston, you're hired to get fired, and that's just the simple truth, you know?
One thing I noticed, whether I thought it was working on a given night or not, you never tried to find the center. I mean, you decided this is what I do, like you said, and for better or worse, I'm just going to try to do it as well as I know how, but I'm not going to take a focus group and find out what they said and try and find the middle off of that.
Well, what I was shooting for was the Tonight Show always seemed to shoot for, it's more traditional show business. Arsenio advocated it was a party every night. We thought of our show as a party, but we were the weird people who always end up in the kitchen. You know, it was like at every party there's a group of 5 or 6 people that kind of end up out in the kitchen. I don't think showbiz is as sacred as we treat it in this culture. I'm a little embarrassed by that and squeamish about that to some extent. There might have been complaints about the show, but one thing, I was really unfiltered out there. If I had done something ineptly, I pointed that out. If I'd done something well, I kind of celebrated in it for a moment. I really felt like I was pretty unfiltered, and you know, I don't know that that's what the society wants, but that's all I could do.
I remember reading a Playboy interview you did a while back, and one of the points you made was you have to distinguish a guy's act from the person. And you used an extreme example of that in Andrew Dice Clay, whose act many people find not only not funny, but repulsive, but you found him to be a very nice guy when you crossed paths with him, and you made that distinction. Your act has an edge to it, a very cynical edge, but you're a nice guy sitting around. Did that get in the way sometimes when you were interviewing, let's say, a guy like Jerry Brown or Al Gore? Did you say to yourself, if this guy's in my monologue, I can cut him to pieces, but he's a guy. I'm looking into a pair of eyes right there, and now I haven't got the heart for this task.
No, I've always been, you know, like you said, my act is kind of edgy, but whenever I'm with human beings, I'm almost sometimes deferential, and I don't feel the need to ambush these people, but God, I sat there with Gore and said, who rolled a tighter joint, you or your wife? I wasn't exactly pulling up, but, you know, I don't have to keep beating on him about that. There's a way to make it a joke. Hey, listen, I was far from a perfect interviewer, but I wasn't a bad interviewer. I was somewhere in between. I was somebody who wasn't real principled about it. I didn't feel that it was such a highly specialized art form. It's just chat.
I think Rosie is about 4 talk shows away from getting pregnant. So,
well, when you get them tied, we'd love to have you back.
Isn't it possible that, well, these 2 things aren't possible. In my mind, they're obvious. You were terrific on SNL. You're a tremendous stand-up comic. I don't think many people, percentage-wise, realize that. Maybe they've seen you on HBO. How many people have seen you in person? I saw you about a year ago in an outdoor thing in St. Louis, and I thought, honestly, no BS, that you're one of the 3 or 4 best guys doing that out there across the board right now. But maybe a talk show isn't the best situation for you.
I felt it was the best thing I ever did. But that's just
Did you really?
me. Yeah, I felt more at ease and more at home in that than anything. So you can never tell. I like doing stand-up. I like doing SNL. but I felt more fulfilled and more, and you know what, I'm not foolish enough to think I'm a Renaissance man in show business. I'm far from it. I've always adhered to the theory that I have a pretty small idiosyncratic list of abilities that don't lend itself to certain things. So I'm not foolhardy in that I think I can direct, produce, act, but I did feel I was right at home there. Now, you know, everybody doesn't have to think that, but in my heart, I really felt like that's what I was to do, is to be a talk show host. I felt good out there.
An example of the philosophy you're talking about, on SNL, you almost never got in sketches. You saw yourself as the Weekend Update guy, and that was what you did well, and you didn't want to venture into something that you couldn't do as well.
This will be where one of those little sketches are dropped in, right? I can see you guys.
The only one I remember is the penis sketch.
Find a little sketch. Yeah, naturally, I was in the most controversial sketch they did in the 6 years I was there, the sketch where they said penis 47 times. And you know what kills me?
And you know, that's entertainment.
But if you think about it, do you believe that somebody sits out there and does not understand when the redundancy factor is hit that much,
right,
that is the very core of the joke? We would get letters and calls of protest. They seem to say penis a lot in that sketch. That was it. That was the whole thing. It's penis. All men have one. They're penises. It just killed me that became controversial.
Well, you know, if you say anything with anything that even looks like a straight face on television, and you have to be willing to accept this, I think all of us do, there's a percentage of the audience that thinks you're being serious. No matter how often they've seen you before, no matter what attitude seems to precede it, no matter what follows it, if you don't hold up a sign that says joke, and there isn't a laugh track or an audience that somehow verifies that in the most obvious way, there is a percentage, I'm not sure what the percentage is, but there is a percentage that thinks you're serious.
Well, look, whenever I hear stories, this is one of the things about the television in our culture that amazes me, and I guess radio in the earlier days, is that it is treated like that. When I hear these stories about the Mercury Theater broadcast of the invasion of the Earth by Martians, I always think that's an apocryphal tale, but evidently it happened. Now, come on. I make no claim to being that evolved as a human being, but if you're sitting at home listening to the radio, and you hear that Martians have attacked the Earth, do you not call somebody or wait a little bit till you hear the commercial for Parquet? Are you immediately jumping off the ledge of your building to kill yourself?
That was 1941.
I don't care. I just don't believe. Martians, wham, I'm dead. I've ended my life. And imagine you're up in heaven sitting around with all these guys. You know, how'd you buy it? You know, fell in a saber in the Crimean War. What about you? You know, I screwed up. I thought that thing was a real Martian invasion, and I killed myself in the fortified. I didn't even make the first commercial. I feel like such an idiot now. You guys get radio up here? I'd like to hear the end of it. I killed myself so early on. I'm sure it's still on. Let's hear the ending. Who sits at home and doesn't realize that when you say penis 47 times in 5 minutes, that you're aware of that fact? It's a joke about you know what happens if you say penis 47 times? Nothing happens.
Hey, Bob. Hey, Ted. How's your penis? Not bad. Good. Good. Hey, I'd like you guys to meet Doug. Hey, Doug. Hey, Doug.
Hi, guys.
Hey, pretty small penis there.
Yeah, you could pick a lock with that penis. Here I am playing tennis with my dad. Hey, you've really got your dad's penis. Yeah.
Other companies have been making some...
How comfortable are you with the way things have come out about your feelings about Jay?
Well, you know what, I first off have never voiced those voluntarily. I've always answered questions about him. And, you know, I'm not going to lie about it, but it's not as heavy as everybody makes it. We just saw a different side of each other. I'm sure Jay, if he wasn't in the I don't make comments on that sort of business, would say the same thing. We just don't, you know, I don't particularly get along with him right now. And, you know, we don't talk. But it's not that crushing. I hadn't seen that much of Jay. He's a good friend. He really was. I mean, we were good friends to each other. And it's just, as so many things in life, when you get in a competitive situation, hey, you know, Woody Strode and Kirk Douglas got along, too. They threw him out in the pit. You know, you got to start swinging that sword, and sometimes somebody gets a little bloodied.
But is it just that? tough competition? Is it Ali, Frazier, and then you throw your arms around each other when the final bell rings, or is there lingering resentment?
I didn't do business the way they did business. We differed in our approach to it, and all I can say is I talked to every one of the other competitors, and but I don't talk to him, and I don't think he'd want to talk to me. We just went about it in a different way.
See, now there people would say, look, Good Morning America and the Today Show, they got to go at it tooth and nail for bookings. They've got to compete hard. Oprah competes with Phil. This is the way the landscape is, and especially now because it's such a jump ball. Johnny leaves. Jay's trying to establish his show. Arsenio is a force. Nobody knows how this thing is going to shake out. We got to be aggressive, but there's nothing unethical about that.
Hey, you know, I don't mind taking the charge. I just hate it when the guy steps on my, neck when I'm done. It was sort of a Leitner type thing. Yeah, it's a tough game out there, but there are ways to do it that wouldn't anger somebody, and there are ways that would. And you know what? It's a bit of a drag. And you know what? I also want to go on record, and you have to put this on. It's not the reason I'm off the air. The culpability flowchart on the demise of my show reads like the genealogy of the kid on the porch in Deliverance. There's a lot of reasons that show's off the air. But the bottom line is, I did have some headaches there, but that is not why I'm off. I read that now. See, that's how you get slammed in this culture. They asked you questions, you try to give an honest answer, and then they say you're blaming him. I'm not. We just didn't get along. We bumped heads, and we don't talk now. But it's not why I'm off the air. But it was hard. It was hard to deal with there.
So here's the good thing about this, though. It's not a soundbite. It's not going to be a short quote in print, so you can say whatever you want here.
Yeah, it's
what
just
did
a
they
bit
do? What did they do that got under your skin?
I don't think there's any way you can win saying that stuff because it looks boring, and it looks like you're, like I said, it'll never come out. It'll always look like I'm whining. We didn't get along. We went about the shows differently, and they were a little, I thought, cold in the way they did business, and that's it. It cost me a friendship.
Do you feel bad about that aspect? Because I remember you saying once that Jay Leno was among the people who taught you you could be successful, you could be funny, and you don't have to be an ass in the process.
Yeah, well, this is pretty rarefied air now. You know, he's the host of The Tonight Show. It gets, and that was the first time I had ever been in direct competition with him. It just, you can see where it wouldn't be naive to think that would alter your relationship with somebody. You know, I don't think at the core Jay's a heinous individual and all that. We don't get along anymore, and we don't chat, and that's it.
How about Arsenio?
You know, I don't know him that well. I think there's this people are too easily deified in our business, so I am not going to go into that rap about how he's beautiful and all this. You know, he seems like a pretty good guy, and he seems pretty honest in his opinions, and I think if Arsenio had trouble with you, he'd call you up and tell you that, and if he liked something you did, he'd call you up and tell you that. I think you get a pretty legitimate bounce off Arsenio. I don't think it's posturing or posing. I actually had dinner with him for the first time last week, and maybe we have a friendship growing there. We had a good time together. I just think he's authentic with me. That's all I ask of people, is that they give me an honest bounce, you know?
By implication, Leno...
Jay and I didn't have that, no.
Leno didn't. Isn't it possible you've been not in an identical situation, but enough similarities to have some understanding of it? This guy finds himself hosting The Tonight Show with all that implies, with an unprecedented amount of pressure and scrutiny, some of which is silly, but it's the culture in which we live, surrounded by people who are trying to steer things in one direction or another, and maybe the side you saw isn't a reflection of what he'd like to send 10 minutes from now.
Hey, believe me, Bob, I'm not one of these people who... I've had fallings out with friends in life, and at a certain point, the half-life on your anger wears off, and you begin to view how do you make amends and all that. Yeah. And believe me, he has to make no concessions, or he doesn't have to alter his behavior at all. He can be like he wants to for the rest of his life. If I saw the certain things that angered me, if they changed again, I don't have an axe to grind for the rest of my time on this planet with Jay Leno. Really, it's much ado about a little something, not nothing, but people make it more than it is. We don't get along right now. Friends have falling out. We bumped heads. I didn't like the way he did business on certain things. I'm sure he thinks I'm a whiner now and all that, but we just didn't hook up in a certain way, and we don't talk right now. Who knows what'll happen down the road? I don't sit there and pine all day and wonder, how am I going to get Jay? It might patch itself up. Who knows?
I think kids...
And exactly when did stewardesses in this country get so f***ing cranky?
What
about when you leave the plane and they've got him propped up near the front door in that complete android catatonic stupor where they look like the Yul Brynner robot from Westworld when he blew a head pipe and iced Marcus Welby's assistant, you know, like, bye, bye, bye.
Who do you think your audience is? You think the people that come to see you in a stand-up are just, they're Dennis Miller people, and that's pretty much what your career is going to be, and you're going to have a tremendous career that way? Or do you think it's a larger audience, at least potentially?
I think I've inherited Marjo Gortner's audience. Many of them who deserted him after Bobby Joe and the Outlaw. No,
Because that's always hard to read. You know, I can go and see you in a small club or in an arena setting like I did about a year ago, and everybody is howling, and you say to yourself, this guy could be the most popular comic in America. But maybe not. Maybe this stuff is so esoteric that only the people who get most of those references show up.
You know what? There's too much placed on that. I honest to God don't think it's that esoteric. I really think people beat that over the head. Maybe we ought to set the speed up a little on this whole game in this country. I'm not a particularly well-read, well-versed man. I read some periodicals and that, but I'm hardly an egghead. If you go out there anywhere in showbiz now, it seems, and say, you know, why can't you say Buckminster Fuller's name? What does that make you some? I don't try to like step out there.
Yeah.
I assume that the goodly portion of this community, maybe the sort of disenfranchised who don't speak up that much because they don't feel they're getting what they need. There's a lot of people out there who might read a little and want some references, want it to be a little harder to get, you know? And do they need to get everything? I don't think so. I'm always infatuated with people when I don't understand. I sat with Eugene McCarthy out there one night. He was so smart. I knew he was to the 10th power smarter than me. You know, and I didn't even know everything he was saying, and indeed if he had quizzed me in the middle of it on a point he had made and said, what did I just mean? I wouldn't even faked it. I would have said, you're just too bright for me. And you know what? I didn't get pissed off at him. I tried to remember a couple things he said and look him up, a couple names he threw, and I was kind of intoxicated that he didn't feel the need to make everything that readily accessible to me. You know, he just spoke. And he said, here's how I speak. If you want to look it up, or if you want to, maybe you'll know some of it. And I did know some of it. And the part I knew, I felt good about. I don't immediately, you know, it's like, Robert Vaughn went across the river in Teenage Caveman, and they all wanted to kill him. I didn't always want to kill that guy. I wanted to grab him and go, hey, what kind of trees do they have over there? You know, I'm kind of intrigued by that.
And a lot of times, the stuff that you do, you don't have to know all of Buckminster Fuller's work. The name just has to ring a bell.
Yeah.
Maybe you think of one thing associated with him, and the very notion of getting the reference and hearing somebody's name or hearing a reference to a place or a situation that you don't expect to hear in this context is funny in and of itself.
Well, I have an example of that in my act. I used to do a joke where I'd tag, I got a life to lead cha-cha was the joke. It was about older women driving slowly and how you want to get up alongside of them. I got a life to lead cha-cha. I wrote it after Shirley Muldowney, the female drag racer. But as I did the joke, I saw nobody had a clue, really, except maybe sometimes down south, who Shirley, or, you know, if I was playing the Rec Room at Chris Economacki's house or something.
Or Roger Color Me Gone Lindemood or TV Tommy Ibo.
Big Daddy Todd. It's fake, Purdue. Naturally, unless you were in a funny car demo, you know, nobody got it. But they dug the rhythms of the word cha-cha. I still have young kids come up to me and go, hey, cha-cha, what's shaking? And I know they don't know who Shirley Muldowney is. You're right, it doesn't all have to be God.
I can't even use a vending machine anymore. Anybody remember when all this took place behind the scenes? You put your money in, you pull the lever, you pick up the candy bar. Now they have these clear front plexiglass machines with the little spirals, and the Fritos always live up on the penthouse floor of the little simulated apartment building. You press the button, literally push them over the ledge to their deck. They plummet right in front of you like Jimmy Stewart in Vertigo. Splat, they're laying in that bin with all that chip gut laying around them, or else the Clark bar comes straight down and severs its spinal column and has to lead the rest of its life in some bizarre other side of the mountain confectionery existence where it still participates in the candy ski tournaments but has to be led through the slalom course by a volunteer Necco wafer package from the local VA hospital that cares, like Linda Kelsey on the old Lou Grant show. Stop me before I sub-reference again.
Yeah, you know, I'm working down at the Trump Taj Mahal, as it were. I used to work the castle, but see, the show.
Now, what kind of crowd comes out? What kind of crowd comes out to the Taj Mahal?
Well, there's another misnomer about show business. Everybody always warned me about playing casinos. You know, you heard all the apocryphal tales about women pulling a slot machine while breastfeeding their baby. You know, it's really crazy, hard business.
Or somebody ticked off that Lola Falana or Shecky Green aren't there.
Right, but or Pat Cooper is the Phantom of the Opera, just crazy, dropping the chandelier down. But
why can't a guy like me get a booking?
But anytime I've ever been there, I've had a cool time. I really think that there are a lot of truisms about show business that just aren't true. I mean, they don't seem like any different to me, the people in that crowd.
Except for one that's always true. When the time's up, unless it's some sort of weird cable access deal.
You're doing the
time's
the
up.
heaviest-handed segue to get out of this.
What?
I need more from you,
You got a
Costas.
better one? We got 5 seconds.
Say Gaudi.
Antoni Gaudi, who, by the way, his name is not the source of the English word gaudy. That was a big, big Olympic mistake.
Whose was
Mea
that?
culpa, mine.
Oh, okay.
On that mea culpa, we have to say,
That was funny.
see you later.
Bye.